But first, the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German, best friends who were killed in the small town of Delphi, Indiana in 2017. It was a case that remained an unsolved mystery until October 28th, when Richard Allen, a local CBS employee, was arrested for the murders. Now, many of the details of the case have been unsealed in the probable cause affidavit. Should Allen have been arrested in 2017? Plus, tonight we take a look at the crime scene. What was found there, and what does it reveal? And is it possible there is a second person involved in these murders, or is Richard Allen the only man responsible for the killing of Libby and Abby?
You know, every time we do this story, it is tough. Welcome to Closing Arguments. You know, I think about the families of these two girls and how heartbroken they are. You know, you're talking about Abby and Libby, two girls, you know, getting ready to, you know, start to grow up a little bit. You're gonna become a teenager, high school, college, all these amazing things that were taken from them, absolutely taken from them. And the more we learn about how they died, it was a horrible, horrible scene. So every time we do this story, that's the first thing I think all of us kind of think about is the gravity of this entire situation and what was lost, what was stolen in such a violent way. Now, there has been an arrest, but there are still a lot of questions. I mean, I have a lot of questions about this investigation, which took over 5 years to make the arrest. And when you think about how it all transpired and who ends up getting arrested, you're wondering, how did they get to that point? Why now? What changed? What transpired so recently that all of a sudden, oh, now we're gonna make an arrest? Because I look at this guy, Richard Allen, and I'm thinking, why was he not on the radar the whole time? The whole time. From the beginning, he was interviewed in 2017. I think he volunteered the interview. He came to investigate. I was there. I was there. Then you look at his build, and you look at the build of the bridge guy, not necessarily dissimilar, right? It's not like he's a tall, skinny guy, you know, he's kind of got that same basic kind of build. And he's a guy who says he's there at the time all of this is happening. And said he saw 3 young girls, and 3 young girls saw him and described the clothing that he was wearing, which was the same as the clothing, similar to the clothing of the bridge guy. So why wouldn't he be on the absolute tippy top of your radar? I know there's other people here that you're looking at because it's unbelievable in such a small town. They've got all these people, but why was he not on the radar? That's my biggest question that I have, and I think a lot of folks have at this point. So how about for police now and investigators? Is it over? It's like they're part of the case over. I'm a former prosecutor. I know you arrest somebody, you charge them with murder, you hand them over to the DA, the assistant state attorney, the prosecutor, whatever it is in your jurisdiction. And then they kind of take over the case. You know, there might be some ends that you got to tie together as you work with your investigative team that will help bring the case to trial. But are they still looking for other suspects here? Where are we in all of this? And if we aren't looking for more people, you know, why did it take 5.5 years to get to where we are tonight? And a lot of these questions I have is because we've learned more information now, because since the arrest, the probable cause affidavit has been released. So tonight, on this show, I want to take a step back and kind of look at the big picture of where we are in this Delphi murder case, this investigation. What do we know? And what really happened, and who is really responsible for this, and is there more to this? Are there still unanswered questions from the perspective of investigators, right? Defense attorneys, I know there's always another suspect. Defense attorneys, I always know you got to look over there, some other dude, this one, that one. I get it. That's part of the case going forward. The defense can investigate that. But from the prosecution perspective, are they looking for someone else? It's not really clear. It's not really clear tonight. But let's start here. Let's start at the crime scene and what we learned from this probable cause affidavit. Let me put it up on the screen for you. February 14th, 2017, victim 1 and victim 2, this is Abby and Libby, were found deceased in the woods approximately 0.2 miles northeast of the Monon High Bridge in Carroll County. Their bodies were located on the north side of the Deer Creek. Clothes were found in the Deer Creek belonging to victim 1 and victim 2, south of where their bodies were located. There was also a .40 caliber unspent round less than 2 feet away from victim 2's body between victim 1 and victim 2's bodies. The round was unspent and had extraction marks on it. All right, so let's focus on this crime scene right now. Let's bring in our investigators. Joining me tonight in Orange County, California, investigative producer and author of Forest for the Trees, Chris Todd, is with us. In Salt Lake City, Utah, private investigator Jason Jensen, you know him well. And in Atlanta, Georgia, assistant chief jailer, former chief of the major crime section, Lieutenant Colonel Adam Lee III. Great to have everyone here tonight. Chris, let me start with you. This crime scene. You've seen pictures. Describe what you've seen. Take us there. Take me, everyone watching tonight, to that scene and describe for us what is where and the significance of these locations. Chris?
Sure. Thanks a lot for having me
Gotcha.
today. Honored to be here. I just got the crime scene photos. I just received these within probably 48 hours. So it's all brand new. I'm still processing what to make of it. It's a little sad, and it's going to be emotional for the families, for the public to see these. And I am going to bring them forward. And I guess we may not show them today, and that's okay. But these are the articles of clothing that were found in the creek.
When you talk about articles of clothing, does this suggest that there may have been some sort of sexual aspect to what happened to these young girls based upon the clothing that you saw in these photos?
I can comment a lot more even about the actual murders themselves. We can wait for that if you'd like, through the Leo whistleblowers that we have. I do know a lot about the murders themselves.
Let it fly.
Okay.
Let it fly,
Sure.
Chris.
So,
let it fly.
but from the clothes, yes, it indicates. Okay. Yes, there was a sexual assault for both victims. And there's some creepy posing and staging that occurred. But just to answer the first question is yes, the clothes in the photos, there's 3 of them. I have 3 photos. And these clothes do indicate that they prove that one of the girls was nude for sure at that moment. And I do believe through the investigation that both girls were nude at one time.
Jason Jensen, this is, the more we learn about the scene, the more troubling it becomes. What does this information tell you about what may have happened to Abby and Libby as we start to try to unwind this gruesome crime scene?
Right, Benny, it's very horrifying to really, to put yourself in their shoes. They must have been just terrified to be forced to strip down their clothes, and then, you know, held at some kind of gunpoint or knife point during this entire event, and then to be murdered at, you know, up the side of a trail like they were. It's just terrifying, both as a parent and what you would imagine as a teenager going through. And so, you know, it just makes it even worse to think that there was some kind of sexual component as well. We don't know if they were assaulted or if they were, you know, just ogled or something, but it's terrible to imagine, especially 6 riveting what's going to transpire in this trial process.
Absolutely. Lieutenant Colonel, I want to put up on the screen more from the probable cause affidavit relevant to the gun that was mentioned in that first part that I spoke about. And it says, an unspent .40 caliber round between the bodies of victim 1 and 2 was forensically determined to have been cycled through Richard Allen's Sig Sauer model P226. They keep referring to it as unspent, cycled through. I'm not quite sure what that means. Can you? It's not fired. It's something different than the gun being fired, correct?
You're absolutely correct, Vinny. What I'm imagining is that, I'm theorizing here, but I believe he probably had, or the person whose gun belonged to this unspent round, probably had one in the chamber. Sometimes people forget that they have a round chamber, and they will cycle another round into the chamber from the magazine of the weapon. So I'm thinking maybe he accidentally ejected that round. If you know anything about semi-automatic weapons, when you pull the housing of the weapon back, and it'll kick a round out, and then it'll cycle another round into the weapon from the magazine. So I'm thinking that's what probably happened. He accidentally ejected that round, which was already in the chamber,
Not knowing that he had one in the chamber already. Now, is that something?
Exactly.
Could that happen without you knowing that it happens, or is that something that you're absolutely going to be aware of? And again, let's put it in the potential scenario where you're trying to take control of 2 young girls.
The only way you're going to not know that happened is if you're looking away. Let's say if he was looking at the young ladies at the time that he did it, he would not have noticed that round was ejected. If he was looking at the weapon, of course he would see it. But if you're looking away from it, you wouldn't even notice it.
Now, here's the response from Richard Allen's attorneys on this issue, because prosecutors in their probable cause are saying that it cycled through the weapon. They've matched it to his weapon, so that is linking him to the scene. But what his attorney says is the probable cause affidavit seems to suggest that a single magic bullet is proof of Rick's guilt. It is a bit premature to engage in any detailed discussions regarding the veracity of the evidence until more discovery is received. But it's safe to say that the discipline of tool mark identification, ballistics, is anything but a science. Lieutenant Colonel, in your career, have you relied upon ballistics? And what are your thoughts about ballistics?
Absolutely. Sometimes that's the only thing you have, is the ballistics. It's a science that's almost exact at this point, and I truly believe in it. The only explanation for that would be the sheer coincidence of him being in that area at some time before that, and having that happen without the murder scene being there, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. All right, Chris, I understand now we've got this huge delay, so we will wait patiently. But from your perspective, looking at the big picture of the crime scene, and you've investigated this case, what does it tell you? What is it speaking? What went down? Like, how did these 2 girls end up where they ended up?
Yeah, my job here today is to talk about Ron Logan. And if Richard Allen is the accomplice, then let's get him, and the death penalty on the table, he should pay for it. My book published 7 days before Richard Allen's arrest, and I actually leaked excerpts of my book 3 weeks before his arrest. I'm not saying there's a coincidence or a reasoning for ISP and Keiko to make that arrest, but there's also been some other whistleblowers coming forward also that triggered about 2 weeks before this. So to me, I opine Ron Logan is bridge guy. And I'm not trying to mess up the trial. I'm not trying to mess with the attorneys. Through what my book is going to say is Ron Logan is bridge guy, and then that's it. Okay. And his height, his size, his walk. I've been on this for 4 years, close to the families. close to law enforcement. I was shunned in the beginning, and I don't need to harp on that, but Ron Logan, I believe, is bridge guy, and he is definitely involved in this. If Richard Allen is, that's to be seen right now.
And I should point out for folks who don't know, Ron Logan has passed away. You see the video we have of him. The bodies were found on his property. He lives very close by, and obviously was someone that people were talking about for years in this case, for obvious reasons, because of the proximity of his property. Jason Jensen, from your perspective, you know, looking at this scene in total, and what happened to these young girls and how they went from one place to another place. We know in that video, in the audio, you hear a gun. So everyone is presuming there's a gun at the scene. Your thoughts about that gun and the ballistics matching to Richard Allen's gun and the ballistics?
Sure. It's interesting because the fact that there was a mention of a gun, it really answers a lot of the questions that we've had for years. It's like, how does one individual bridge guy control two victims at the same time? But obviously, if he's armed with a gun and the girls see that, which apparently they did, they're going to, you know, freeze up and obey whatever command they're provided, because they're thinking, as long as we listen to this guy, we're not in danger. Well, you know, that proved to be contrary, but really they were marched down to their death is ultimately what we've learned. And given the fact that they were not murdered by a gunshot, they were murdered by other means, it's really interesting how the whole gun is going to play out here, because we don't know what kind of gun the bridge guy controlled them with. We just know that there's a unspent shell right by the girls, which the property was Ron Logan's. So was that bullet already there when they were taken to that location? Did they find that bullet on the trail and carry it themselves? Or was that, you know, bullet there by the killer?
So, Lieutenant Colonel, let me ask you, in all the homicides that you've investigated through the years, have you ever come across a situation where a killer has a gun but murders his victims by another means?
Yes, the gun may have been just a control mechanism, but the killer may have had some other thoughts as to how he was going to commit the murder, whether it be strangulation or suffocation or stabbing or whatever means that they decided. But the gun may just be a control mechanism on the onset of taking them into his custody.
And that is something that you've seen in your career. I mean, you have a long career of investigating tons of cases.
Yes, I've seen that.
It wouldn't be outrageous for that to occur.
Not at all. Not at all. It could be used to initiate a kidnapping, let's say, to force someone into a vehicle and take them somewhere else, and then end up killing them in some other means.
All right, our guests are staying with us. We appreciate their time tonight. We're going to talk about, in the next segment, a little bit about why is he arrested now? Why not 2017? I think Chris even mentioned something about that, which is interesting. So we'll talk about that, plus coming up next hour.
In Palm Beach County, Florida, Casey Anthony in the new Peacock docuseries has accused her father, George, of killing her daughter, Kaylee, and being a pedophile. If this is not true, should George sue Casey for defamation? Tonight, we ask the man who won the defamation trial of the century, Johnny Depp's attorney, Ben Chu.
In 2018, a killer walked the streets of Laredo, Texas.
He took advantage of the vulnerability of this community.
I mean, there was a lot of fear.
Former Border Patrol agent Juan David Ortiz,
accused of killing 4 women.
Ortiz carried out these murders in a cold and callous way.
Now he faces a jury and life in prison if convicted.
The Border Patrol serial killer trial. Live coverage weekday mornings at 9/8 Central on Court TV.
It's the bridge guy video and some of the audio that was recorded the day Abby and Libby were murdered. I'm sure the killer did not know he was being recorded, but probably found out afterwards when that got released and leaked, if he was still around, and investigators believe he was. So I want to talk about 2017, because the man who now has been arrested was interviewed in 2017. Let me put that up on the screen from the probable cause affidavit. Investigators reviewing prior tips encountered a tip narrative from an officer who interviewed Richard M. Allen in 2017. So think about that line first of all, okay? That means in 2022, they go back and they were reviewing some prior tips when they came across the interview with Richard Allen from 2017. The interview that, for whatever reason, was not on the top of a pile and wasn't on anyone's radar. Here's what's in that interview from 2017 that they took another look at. Mr. Allen was on the trail between 1330 and 1530. He parked at the Old Farm Bureau building and walked to the New Freedom Bridge. While at the Freedom Bridge, he saw 3 females. He noted one was taller and had brown or black hair. He did not remember the description, nor did he speak with them. He walked from the Freedom Bridge to the Heim Bridge. He did not see anybody, although he stated he was watching a stock ticker on his phone as he walked. He put himself there, folks. He put himself there, volunteering this information to investigators. And then the notes say a potential follow-up information. Who were the 3 girls walking in the area of the Freedom Bridge? Well, they did track them down, and those 3 girls juveniles described what that man they saw was wearing, which was similar to what the bridge guy was wearing. So back in 2017, the information was there for investigators. You had someone, Richard Allen, and now the man has been arrested, putting himself at the scene, being seen by 3 girls. The 3 girls described the clothing that he's wearing, and that clothing is similar to the video of the killer that investigators have, but the killer doesn't know about. Wow. Then in 2022, on October 13th, we can put this up, Richard was interviewed again by investigators. He advised he was on the trails. He told investigators he was wearing blue jeans and a blue or black Carhartt jacket with a hood. He advised he may have had some sort of head covering as well, basically confirming what those other 3 girls said he was wearing that day. So let me bring back in Chris Todd, investigative producer, author of Forest for the Trees. Jason Jensen, private investigator, with us as well. Lieutenant Colonel Adam Lee III. Lieutenant Colonel, let me just ask you first, as a member of law enforcement, was this a mistake? If you arrest the guy in 2022 and in 2017 he told you he was there, and in 2017 3 girls described the man that they saw, he said that he saw 3 girls, and the clothing was the same as what the killer was wearing, was similar, according to their descriptions. At that point, should you have probably taken more action, or am I reading too much into this?
What I'm concerned about, Vinny, is basically the continuity of the investigation. I don't know if they had the same lead investigator that took this case on from start to finish, or what the case may be. Maybe some documentation slipped out of the package, or whatever, the investigative package. So it's alarming that they had this information.
Yeah. Can I ask you this though? I really want to ask you this question. Like, if somebody says they're actually there at the time all this is happening, and it's a man, and you're looking for a man, is there any way in the world that he falls off the radar for 5 years?
Absolutely not. Like I said, somebody dropped the ball, big time, big time.
Let me ask you, Chris, before all of this happened, did you come across this guy in your travels there? Maybe you went to CVS one day, I don't know. Did you ever hear of this guy, Richard Allen, before this arrest?
No one's ever heard of Richard Allen in the entire investigation. All the podcasters, none of them have mentioned his name once. No one's mentioned his name.
All right, I'm going to read the statement from his attorneys. Jason Jensen, you work with a lot of attorneys. Here's what his attorney says. Rick is a 50-year-old man. He's never been arrested, accused of any crime in his entire life. He's innocent, completely confused as to why he's been charged with these crimes. The police did not contact Rick after Libby and Abby went missing. Rather, Rick contacted the police, voluntarily discussed being on the trail that day. Like many people in Delphi, Rick wanted to help any way he could. Rick contacted the police to let them know that he had walked the trail that day, as he often did. Without Rick coming forward, the police probably would not have had any way of knowing that he was on the trail that day. What are your thoughts about that, Jason, about Richard Allen not on the radar, but actually bringing, going to police himself?
Right. It makes you think that there's something there, because oftentimes we know that the person that discovers the body may have been the murderer, and oftentimes somebody that puts himself in the vicinity, like Richard Allen did, could have been the murderer. So why would he not be properly vetted, thoroughly vetted, to make sure that he wasn't just trying to appear to be a helpful witness, when in fact he was just trying to do a cover story why he was there, and that he didn't see anything because he doesn't want to be implicated, where he may have had some guilt. Here we don't know, because wow, why wait 5 years? He put himself on their radar voluntarily. That should have been excluded way back when, or they should have built their case then and not now, in my opinion.
Very confusing. Lieutenant Colonel Adam Lee, in all your experience, and I keep calling on your experience, did you ever have a suspect who ended up being the one who committed the crime voluntarily come to you or one of your detectives to voluntarily say, oh yeah, I was there when all this happened, and then eventually you end up arresting that person?
Yes, that's happened on several occasions. Sometimes people want to clear their name in advance. They want to make it seem like they didn't do it, so they figure they would think that we would think, why would a person who is guilty come forward and be willing to talk to us about the situation if they were guilty? So they really are just trying to plant that seed that I didn't do it. So I'm going to give you all the information I have, so don't even bother to investigate me any further.
Okay. Investigators, everyone's staying with us. When we come back, Chris Todd, we are going to talk about whether or not there are any other suspects involved and dive a little bit deeper into a subject I know that you have taken a very close look at. We'll be right back.
Nicholas McClelland, who is the prosecutor in Carroll County, had a pretty big moment in court today when he basically kind of came out and said that law enforcement is looking at the possibility that other actors may have been involved in the Delphi murders. Right now, Rick Allen is the only person standing accused of the crime. But basically what the prosecutor said today was that they are currently looking for more people who might be involved, and that is why they want the probable cause affidavit to remain sealed in the case.
All right, that was big news from inside the courtroom, right? The prosecutor saying other people may be involved. That's unusual when you're a prosecutor, that you're still investigating the case, but that they said inside the courtroom to the judge. You can't make that up. You can't lie to the judge. As a prosecutor, you don't do that. You don't risk your career, your profession, for some other reason. You just wouldn't do that. That would be ridiculous if you did. So there may be someone else involved here. Let's take a look at the probable cause affidavit, though, and this is the information that became unsealed that the prosecutor wanted sealed. Through the statements and photographs of the juvenile witness and the statement of the redacted witness and another redacted witness who were at the southeast edge of the trail at 1243 east of the Freedom Bridge at 126 and walked across the former railroad overpass over Old State Road 25 after 126 and before 146. They walked the entirety of the trail and observed only one person, an adult male. Furthermore, vehicle seen on Hoosier Harvest Store video at 146 leaving at 214, and she stated she saw only one adult male. Another witness redacted, and another redacted witness described the male in similar manners, wearing similar clothing, leading investigators to believe all four saw the same individual. So, none of these witnesses saw anyone else walking away from the scene that day. Let's bring back in Chris Todd, Jason Jensen, Lieutenant Colonel Adam Lee III. Chris, I want you to address this. You've got witnesses seeing one person. Obviously, prosecutors say it's Rick Allen. You may believe differently. Is it possible? Is there any way that a second person could be there and not be seen walking away from the scene that day?
Basically, the witnesses are saying they see someone dressed in all black and they see someone dressed in a light blue jacket and blue jeans. Which one is it? These girls are together seeing the same person in real time. So there's two totally different descriptions. The heights are different. Ron Logan is taller, over 6 feet. Richard Allen is 5'4" to 5'5". They're nowhere similar. So Ron Logan, like I stated before, is bridge guy. If Richard Allen's the accomplice and he says, oh, I was at this murder scene, hey, I didn't see anything happen. That's not smart on his part, okay? So I don't know why he would place himself there. He just happens to be there. And the answer to your question is, yes, Richard Allen could be seen by them at the plaza coming from the old CPS building, weave down to Ron Logan's property. And Ron Logan actually comes probably up the backside of the bridge. I don't think these girls saw Ron Logan. I think they saw, if Richard Allen was there, they saw Richard Allen.
Jason Jensen, so my understanding is that it's possible for Logan, who has passed away, can't be prosecuted, but obviously could be implicated, could get away from that scene without being seen by these same girls, juvenile, I say girls because they're juveniles, or the other redacted witnesses. There's someone else who saw someone dressed similarly, muddied and bloodied, again, walking away from this scene. So what are your thoughts about two people versus one person at the murder scene versus what is witnessed walking away from the murder scene?
Yeah, assuming that all the statements in the probable cause are accurate, assuming that, you know, these witnesses are there representing exactly what they saw, you have to believe that they witnessed somebody leaving the scene, and including bloody and muddy. So if there was a second person, that person did not leave with that individual. That person, I mean, the crime scene was the property owner, was the property owned by Ron Logan, so he wouldn't have to leave anywhere. He would just simply go to his own residence because it was that property that was the crime scene. So it makes sense if there's more than one individual involved, you're not going to see someone leaving the scene because he lives there.
Lieutenant Colonel Adam Lee III, if you've got one suspect, right? If there are two in a situation like this, is there any way that you can link these guys? I mean, this would not be a murder, a crime of opportunity by two guys who don't know each other. They'd have to have some connection if there's more than one involved in all this. And how difficult do you think it would be to establish that connection?
Not at all, especially with young people. You usually look at their social media activity. It's a chance that, you know, the age of these individuals, they may not be active on social media, but I would be looking at their job history. Have these two guys ever worked together? Have they ever visited the same places? Do they have a similar circle of friends? I would be looking at all of that. I would be looking at their phone records. Have they ever called one another? Is there any degree of separation between them that's pretty close, like a mutual friend? So I would be looking at all that to see if I could tie that in together.
Yeah, to me, that's the biggest unanswered question right now. I mean, do they believe someone else is involved? And if so, who is it? Because if there isn't, but there's evidence that kind of points that way, This trial is going to be awfully difficult for prosecutors, despite the evidence that we've seen in this probable cause affidavit. I know that. I've been watching these trials for more than 20 years, and I know what happens.